Hello, it's Anne Marie with AM Astro, and I just wanted to take a couple of charts onto the screen and take a look for the full moon that's coming up next week and the significance of that. The first chart I wanted to look at was the Great Conjunction, because the Great Conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter in traditional astrology, traditional mundane astrology, the Great Conjunctions every 20 years start a new epoch for those 20 years of Saturn and Jupiter getting together. But then by the element, which is air, water, earth, and fire, this was the first one. There was a great conjunction in 1980 in Libra, in air, but what you base it on, and that gives you like a hint, a preview, and then there was another one in Earth in 2000, and then this one in 2020 occurred on December 21st, 2020. What is considered the first, because it's not going back now. It'll be in air for the next 200 years. So this, and starting at 0 Aquarius, and as we know, Aquarius is for the people rule, rather than the top-down Capricorn hierarchy. It's now the people's voice, and the outsiders, the fringe is now going to be in control, or taking back power. So I wanted to look at this chart for that reason, to note that it is 0 Aquarius. This was from December 21st, and I have it set for Washington, D.C., because that's the capital of our country. And one of the other significant points of this chart is Mars squaring Pluto. And so if you think of Pluto being the behind the scenes main source of impetus, the drive, the intention, and Mars is the action, the getting it done, the command, the following the orders of the mission. And this first square then is where the conflict begins. What needs to be changed? There's something that needs to be addressed. There's a problem. So this, I think, for the next 20 years, this chart says we're becoming aware of the problems of the Capricorn top-down government and the need for the people to take over. And this 20-year period is going to be the awareness of the conflicts and how that isn't working and what needs to change. I think we want to look at this 27-degree Pisces moon, because that's nearing the end of the zodiac. It's almost at 28. It's still 27, but there's an end nearing, and so it's like this, over the 20 years that this chart is emblematic, that moon is saying, there's going to be a change. We're completing a cycle. This is the beginning of a cycle, but there's also a completion that's happening, and we're still going to go through the steps to reach that completion.
Dr. J. Terrell.
Oh. So the next chart that I want to look at is the Aries ingress. So when we looked at the Great Conjunction, that starts the new epoch, and then each year the Aries ingress is like a solar return that we look at for the nation. For mundane astrology, we look at the Aries ingress as a kind of solar return. This is the start of the year, and we look at this to see what significations apply for this year. And you always want to look at a chart. I should have said this in the previous one, but the first thing you should look at is angularity. And there's nothing in the 10th, nothing in the 1st. We've got a lot here in the 4th, and then something happened here on the 7th. So And I use Regiomontanus, but you can also look at whole signs, which is more traditional to the Hellenistic period. But I use Regiomontanus because I think there's importance in the cusps as well. And so even if this wasn't Regiomontanus, 1, 2, 3, 4, it would still be, it's the fourth sign. So Mars is sitting right here. The fact that this is the MCIC axis and Mars is sitting right on it. Mars is the rebel, violence, and this is a night chart. So Mars is in sect. But if you look at the leadership of the country up at the 10th house cusp, then the opposing party, or the rebels, the rebellion, the other side here has Mars and this aggression and conflict, and it's in the air sign. So it's an intellectual difference, but there's violence to it. These planets are still here, but if it was whole sign, they would be in the 5th house. But because it's in the 4th house, I mean, and you want to look at it both ways. You want to consider, both ways, and because we have Venus, Saturn, and Neptune, but Venus and Saturn mainly would be female energy, and Venus is exalted in Pisces, so this exaltation of female energy. And then there's also this tradition and old people, and Saturn doesn't like Pisces because Saturn is all about boundaries and limitations, and Pisces is about, yeah, no, we're gonna flow, going with the flow. So it's like Venus, the faster planet, is taking over, is overpassing Saturn. So there's this idea of the female energy passing over this old traditional idea. And then we can see that Pluto is at that, close to the 0 degree Aquarius from the Great Conjunction. So now that Plutonian element of, where are we going, what are we doing? And there's a theme of the intention carrying through here. So just that 27 degrees though, I want to bring up again and then here Neptune is at the 27 degrees of the moon was at 27 degrees Pisces in the Great Conjunction, and Neptune is there now. So there's this idea of fog coming over the people. The moon is the people. And so there's this fog or just a uncertainty and hoping for things to be better than they really are, or thinking things are better than they really are. A sense of disappointment. Neptune can often bring about disappointment. But this 27 degrees Mars in Aquarius now is being triggering to this full moon that's coming up, which is at 27 degrees Aquarius. So this chart, there's so much going on in this chart. The full moon at 27 Aquarius, the sun is at 27 Leo, and it is squaring 27 Taurus, where Uranus is. So there's this sudden, unexpected, and it's a square again. So it's like conflict. There's something, it's the aspect that's related to Mars. And because Mars was at 27 degrees of Aquarius in the Aries ingress, and the aspect that we're looking at here is a square, what's a T-square, there's conflict, there's something needs to change. And because Uranus is here, it's, Uranus is, and you're not going to know where it's coming from. It's not what you're expecting. It's not what you're expecting. There's also this other T-square with Venus right here on the midheaven and Saturn at the foundation, as the old guard, the rebels, the people that are opposing the leadership are down here at the position of the IC that Mars was in the Aries ingress, not the same, not the degree, but in the same position in the chart on the IC, as the rebel, the old white guard, the old traditional way of things is opposing this new element, this new idea of female leadership and the divine feminine. So these are the oppositions, but they are squaring off against Mars and Jupiter, this conjunction here. And because this is a mutable square in mutable signs, there's a sense of adaptation. There's a sense of, that we can get through this. Whereas this T square is a fixed signs, and it's like, this is going to be harder to change. So Mars and Jupiter had just been conjunct. This is another cycle that we need to talk about. Jupiter squaring Saturn. If you go back to the Great Conjunction, they were conjunct at 0 Aquarius, and now this is that opening square for that the start of this 20-year period. This is the opening square saying, uh-oh, we've got something we need to change here. We've got something we need to address. There's a conflict here. So all of that is going on our full moon on the 19th, next week. And what the Sabian symbols are for this full moon is a tree felled and sawed, a tree felled and sawed. So I was like, well, what does, did I get rid of it? I did, I think. Pause. So I looked up the spiritual meaning of a tree falling, and look at this. A reference to the destruction of nations or a personal connection to Adam's story. The metaphor of the destruction of nations or their rulers. So that was something to think about. How come I can't get back to, here we go. And then the Sabian symbol for where the sun is in the opposition to that full moon is many little birds on the limb of a large tree. So for me, that just kind of jumped out because the Mars was at this same degree, a tree fallen and sawed, the idea of the destruction of a nation or the destruction of the rulers. And then this on the other side is the branch of the tree filled with the many little birds. So the impact of the tree falling is going to have many smaller ripples. Many little birds that were on the limb are now scattering. Which reminds me also of the in mundane astrology, you also look at the eclipses to get clues as to what's going to be happening. They overlay the Aries ingress and the epochs, the great conjunctions. So the solar eclipse chart from April, and these eclipses have 6 months before and 6 months after the effects of them. There's more technical ways of judging the timing of these things, but if you just look at the horizon and whether or not, so like if you think 6 months before and 6 months after, so then where is this going to be impacting? And it's happening in the second half of the 6 months, which is where the eclipse is happening. And this eclipse is at 19 Aries, which is the degree of the sun's exaltation, but the sun is being eclipsed, and the sun represents the ruler of the nation, the president. So the president is being eclipsed. And eclipses historically are, for the nations that the eclipse is visible, where the eclipse is passing over that nation, historically, they would take the president out and put in a fake president for a period of time because they didn't want harm to come to their king or their president or the ruler. And so who knows what happened in April with President Biden, but did he not get eclipsed? I mean, he has stepped down from seeking re-election, and Kamala Harris now is the candidate. But also, like, this degree also says if an eclipse is in Aries, that there will be a death to the ruler, or to a ruler. A ruler will die, a king will die. And so we don't know. The death of the pursuit of the presidency, it's a metaphorical death. But there's also, like, idols and people that we lift up that aren't necessarily in the position, but that we give, or people, society gives an individual the position of their leader. And so, this could also be, it could refer to the former guy who will be eclipsed as well. In this chart was also the Mars-Saturn conjunction, which we now we are at the square of that. So there's numerous opening squares happening in this full moon, and they're all malefic. They're all so here's the Mars-Saturn. So this is the actual square on August 16th, which is on Friday, the weekend before. But this full moon, the day of the Democratic Convention in Chicago, and this fallen tree and the effects of it, and it's not going to be as you expected. And we've got the female leadership in opposition to the old guard, with an increased violence element. And now these are mutable. So again, it's going to be, you need to adapt. But we have, of course, this is all rhyming to 1968, when the sitting president, Johnson, announced last minute that he was not going to seek re-election. So we can see the similarities there. And the Democratic Convention was in Chicago that year. And then they had all these riots, these students that were protesting the war in Vietnam. And so now we have students protesting what's happening in the Middle East, in Gaza. And so will there be large-scale riots in Chicago? I don't know. But it certainly looks like that is a possibility if I look at the chart and see Mars and that violence. And so these things are going to be on my mind. And I would love to hear what you all think. And please like, share, and subscribe, and comment below. And we will see you again next time. Thank you for watching.